Alright, lesson 3, fundamentals of suspension systems. And then, this is subcourse OD1006, edition 6, U.S. Army Ordnance Center School Wheel Vehicle Driveline Suspension, Axle Suspension, Aipd, Army Institute of Professional Development. We're on lesson 3, fundamentals of suspension systems. Alright, task. Describe fundamentals of suspension systems. Give information about construction, operation, maintenance, spring, shock, absorbers, frames, bogie systems, suspension system, tires, and wheels. Learning event 1. Describe the types of construction, operation, frames, and springs, and shock absorbers. Shock absorbers. The purpose of vehicle suspension system is to support the weight of the vehicle. The perfect suspension system would give it a smooth ride with the rough roads while keeping the wheels pressed firmly on the good traction. It would be allowed the vehicle to carry the small loads, very large loads, without changing any of its other good features. Unfortunately, it's not practical to build all vehicles with perfect suspension. Instead, in each type of the vehicle, the suspension system built with a particular type of the job. Because most military vehicles must travel over the rough roads, carry heavy loads, their suspension systems are very strong and stiff. However, some of the vehicles used in military vehicles have more flexible suspension. As wheeled vehicles mechanics, you must have knowledge of both types. Lesson will cover suspension system components, including frame, springs, bogie, suspension system, shock absorbers, wheels, and tires. Frame construction. To provide a rigid foundation vehicle body, also with a solid mounting of the suspension system. A frame of some sort of necessary of the plane construction of the frame depends on the type of the vehicle, the surface of which the vehicle is intended. Two major types of the frames are common used: the windshield frame and the integral frame. The windshield frame is made separate from the body, and the various vehicle parts are bolted into the integral type of the frame of the body used in the unit welded together. Conventional frames of the passenger car trucks are built with the side rails of the cross member of the gasket. Gaskets are angular pieces of the metal used with the strengthened points where side rails and cross member joints. These parts are riveted together. Looks like some of the forms of the letter A, X, Y, and K. These assembled frame combines stiffness, strength, and lightweight. The conventional frame is usually not more than 30 inches wide in front, and so that the wheels will not rub it when making sharp turns. It may be widened to 48 inches in the rear to increase body stability. Kick-ups and humps over the axles allow the vehicle to be set closer to the ground. For large trucks and frames simply made with a rugged channel iron, the side rails are usually set with a standardized width of the permit of the mounting of the shock, transmission, transfer, assembly, axles, and so forth. Trucks also leave the wrecks, and tractors have additional reinforcement side rails, rear, and cross member. The frame members serve as support with suspension arms, radiators, transmissions, may be attached. Additional brake brackets and supports are added with the mounting of the running of the board, spring bumpers, engines, towing hooks, shock absorbers, gas tanks, and spare tires. Rubber insulator blocks are usually used when in between the frame and body attachments to reduce vibration and road noise. The integral type frame varies by sections with the strengthened structural members. All these sections are welded together and what is usually referred to as a unitized body and frame. One example integral frame is the hull of the combat tank. The tank hull is an assembly with a heavy armor plate. It serves not only as a frame but as a house to protect the crew construction. Construction of spring and shackles. Figure 24 shows the elliptical leaf spring. The key parts of the suspension system springs. One first type of springs is used as the suspension system is elliptical leaf. Is referred to as an elliptical spring. Because it has an oval shape like a football or an egg. Figure 25 shows the elliptical laminated leaf. The spring is made stronger, adding more leaf springs between known as the elliptical laminated leaf spring. Figure 26 shows elliptical springs. Many variation springs with semi-elliptical laminated leaf, quarter elliptical laminated leaf, semi-elliptical laminated leaf springs most commonly used with modern trucks and modern passenger cars. The semi-elliptical laminated leaf spring consists of the spring, several spring lever, the differential lever, the center bolt, the spring leaf clips. Spring leaves are assembled according to the length of the ranging of the shortest one hole on one side, the longest on the other side of the spring. The center bolt passes through the hole in the spring lever that is secured with a nut. The center bolt holds the spring leaves in place and has held with the head of the generally engaged spring in the seat with assist with the axle alignment. Spring leaf clips are fitted around the spring with each one over the secured with a bolt and spacer and nut. Clips hold the ends of the leaves together with the vehicle bounces over the rough roads. They're often called rebound clips. The end of the first and the main leaf are often rolled into circles. These are called the spring eyes. Bushing type of bearings is pressed into the spring eye. Usually is this smooth brass sponge bushing. Sometimes maybe rubber or threaded steel type. Light truck semi-leaf laminated leaf springs are generally used to mount each axle assembly. The ends of each spring are fastened vehicle lengthwise. The axle assembly fastens the spring near the centers, and the spring holds the assembly in alignment with the vehicle frame. The shackle allows the spring to flex the weight at the vehicle loaded in chains. The vehicle travels over the road rough road with a flexible spring cut with the length of the chain with a flexible action laminated type leaf type spring is restricted to the friction of the links rubbing together. There are several different types of spring shackle. The bolt type of the shackle that has two flat side pieces. The pins are made by like bolts of the head of the one end they threaded and the other end receiving the nut. Has the grease fit and passage of the permitting lubrication to the center of the bearing. Instead of the thread type shackle with the bearings of the have internal threads of the thread pins of the screw and each bearing ends of the pins of the fitted into the holes. The shackle side pieces bolt and small pins are placed in the hole side pieces and engage the groove with the thread pins with the hole of the side pieces on the thread pins. The U-type shackle is one piece. The U-type shaped bolt with threaded on one end of the bearings of the threaded both internally and externally. To assemble the U-type shackle, the shackle must be first placed inside of the bearing board, spring and spring hanger. The thread bearing is then screwed into the bearing bore onto a shackle at the same time. The pin and bolt type shackle is usually one piece shackle that resembles the letter H. The shackle is fastened with the spring of the spring hanger with straight pins. The pins are locked in place and bolts and straight head threaded type shackle. The center bolt type shackle consists of two side pieces of the center bolt and two threaded pin tapered on either end of the bearing. Threaded on inside of the receiving the threaded bearings, the shackle side with the have tapered holes and fit over the tapered end with the pins. The center bolt patch of the side piece hold with the side with the tapers, and variation of the shackle with the pins and threaded portion extend with the band beyond the nut tapers. Nuts and washers then used to secure the side pieces instead of the center bolt. Single piece link shackles has one piece U-shaped shackle that forms both side pieces, bolt type pins, secure shackle and spring hanger. The Y type shackle is a one piece shackle that is shaped in the letter Y. One of the bearings is connected in the shaft itself. Your type of springs. For a number of years, the passenger vehicles have a coil-type spring with a suspension system. At first, they were mainly independent suspension system front wheel that is present with a coil spring will use them both in front of the rear passenger vehicles. One military vehicle with a coil suspension is both front with the rear ton of the quarter ton M151. The coil springs have wide application, but they cost less than make them, and they are compact and they are effective. The main disadvantage success with bouncing with the vehicle result with the frictionless action, making shock absorbers necessary. Coil springs are made of stainless special steel rods heated and wound with the shape of the spiral coil with one end contact with the vehicle frame, the other end contacts the axle suspension device with a rubber-like pad insulator used at the end of the spring with the contact with the frame, and the insulator prevents vibration transferring from the spring to the vehicle frame. Another type of the suspension spring with a tactical track-laying vehicle with a torsion bar. The torsion bar is being successfully used in some passengers and car trucks. These suspension consists of the long spring steel bar. One end of the bar is secured to the non-movable mounting called the anchor. The other fastened to the suspension system of a lever. The lever arm is moved up through the long torsion bar. The bar resists the twisting and gives the spring action, allows returning original position unless it's overloaded. Torsion bars are usually made of take stress in one direction only. Often they're marked with an arrow stamped in the metal to indicate the direction of the stress. Alright, large wheel vehicles are built with a carry of both heavy and light loads. Several methods have been used to change load rating of the spring suspension vehicle load change. Actual spring, auxiliary springs, and other secondary springs are commonly used in addition to the main spring for the purpose. Secondary springs is often secured with the frame of the center with it and free. Vehicle loads increase with the center of the mount. Main spring is compressed, bringing the free end of the second spring with against the axle. Both springs down support the load. The load ratings are added. The arrangement permits the vehicle to carry heavy loads without compression of the main spring too much. Another variable load suspension system provides spring arrangement with increase of the effective strength of the spring loaded. Increase of the springs are made with the flat ends of the both bear against the curved bearing plates. With light load and spring ends made with the contact with the outer edge of the curve of the bearing plate. The part of the bearing plate with the farthest away from the center of the spring is low with increase of the spring. Press with the causing point of the contact move toward the inner edge of the bearing of the plate. The decrease of the effective length of the string give the higher load rating of the method is referred to as variable load spring arrangement. Two rear axles used with many heavy trucks to reduce the load on each rear wheel. With addition with the two axle defect, increase effective of the road shock, increase retraction. A typical rear end of the heavy vehicle consists of the axle mounted at each end of the rear spring. The loaded vehicle is supplied with the center of the springs by means of the spring seat, which is supported on the frame. The rear springs carry the same load as do with a single rear axle. However, the load is divided between the two axles instead of being applied to one. The driver is usually applied with both rear axle military vehicles. Torque can transmit the driving force of the frame or arranged with none of the turning forces is applied with the springs. The rear suspension of the truck of the two rear axles is usually called the bogie suspension. Consists of the two axles joining the spring of the pivoted bearing mounting spring of the seat. The spring seats bearing fitting around with the tuning axle rigidly attached to the frame through the mounting pad ends of each spring tester and hardened steel bearing plates of the two axle housing. Both springs are clamped at the spring seats by U-bolts. When vehicle travels over uneven surface, spring pivots on the tape of the roller bearings. As a result, the vehicle is made with the different divided between the four wheels, even though that one wheel may be lower than the higher surface. This allows the vehicle to carry heavier loads without exceeding the safe tire load. Also, when one wheel hits a pump, the spring pivoted of the seat bearings, both ends of the spring absorb the shock. Thus, the effect of the road shock of the vehicle frame and the body of are reduced to one half. When only one axle is deflected up and down, the tuning axle vehicle frame are raised lower one half of the mount. The span of the bogie axle reduces half of the shock impact on not only on the vehicle frame but also on the tires. Our construction of Operation Shock Absorber. The vehicle traveling a level the road vehicle strikes a bump. The spring is compressed quickly. The compressed spring will attempt to return the normal load length of the engine. So doing, will rebound the normal height, causing the body to be lifted. Where the vehicle pushes the ring down to the normal loaded height with the turn in case of the spring to rebound with the bouncing of the net process is repeated over and over, a little less each time and up and down with the movement. It finally stops. If the bouncing is allowed to be uncontrollable, not only cause uncomfortable ride, but will also handle the vehicle very difficult. Overcome bouncing assembly called shock absorber. You the main function shock absorber to control the regulate the spring or bound. Shock absorbers also check the resistance of the spring bound react is a single action. Shock absorbers may also deaden regulate with the compression spring by absorbing the part of the energy. Spring is depressed. Shock absorbers regulates the compression of the addition rebound with the double action. Shock absorbers used at the present time to double acting because they permit use of more flexible spring to give more comfortable ride. Many types of shock absorbers have been used the same operated with the friction spring tension they use the present with the hydraulic operated depending upon the resistance of liquid flowing from the small opening in the chuck with the action spring. Typical cam operated is known as the indirect acting hydraulic shock absorber attached to the frame of the vehicle that contains a lever pivots to the housing. Lever is pinned with the link of attached to the spring clamp. Assembly rubber grommets use both end link to prevent metal-to-metal contact to provide flexibility when the spring compressor of the rebound shock absorber is activated. Our one can operated absorber made with a check with a rebound with single acting housing. Body contains an oil-filled reservoir cylinder cam operated piston located with cylinder cam and is mounted on the shaft. To the shock absorber, the lever to connect the piston held against the cam and the coil spring with the cylinder intake and check valve, which permits oil to enter the cylinder from the outer reservoir, is located with the piston head. The cam moves to the right when the vehicle is compressed. The piston spring with the force of the piston to valve of the cam open with the intake valve, allowing the oil to flow into the cylinder of the valve is a large pore opening, and so it offers little resistance flow of the oil, therefore little effect of the acting on the piston when the spring is being compressed. The vehicle's spring is rebound with the cam is moved with the reverse direction force of the piston to the left against the oil with the cylinder, closing the intake valve with the portion of the move the piston with the forces of the oil from the cylinder through the small opening of the relief valve. Liquids are not compressible under ordinary pressures that can take certain amount of time for the oil flow for the small relief valve opening. Therefore, the rebound of the vehicle spring is slowed down. The flow of the oil vehicle spring was rebound regulated with the side of the valve opening. In addition, some of the regulations obtained with the valve spring pressure holding the relief valve against the seat. This is maintained vehicle spring stops and rebound relief valve is called closed by the valve spring. The operating principle of the double-acting cam-operated shock absorber is the same as the single-acting shock absorber, except with the check springs action in both directions. Cam-operated double-action shock absorber has two pistons. One regulates the vehicle spring rebound, the other regulates the spring compression. The shock absorber most widely used the directly acting shock absorber. These shocks are often referred to as airplane-type shocks. Direct-acting shocks are mounted directly to both the vehicle frame and the axle suspension arm. As frame rises and falls in relation to the axle and shock absorber, must telescope out and in. Shock resistant to the telescope movement that dampens and hinders and slows down up and down movement. Shocks must also have been made with the ends of the mounting may have thread studs and rubber bushings used in the eyes, rubber grommets on the studs to prevent the metal-to-metal contact and provide flexible mounting. The direct-acting shock absorber consists of the inner and outer cylinder, a piston and piston rod, in most cases the outer dust and rock shield, series of valve of the piston, top and bottom inner cylinder, control movement of the oil within the shock reservoir, which contains the supply oil surrounds the inner cylinder. The direct-acting shock absorber, the double-acting vehicle spring, is compressed with the shock absorber telescopes and gets shorter, moves the piston down, putting the pressure from the oil under the piston. For the piston continues to move downward and necessary for the oil to pass through the compression valve. The oil flows through the compression valve upper section inner cylinder. Air flow with the spring compression regulated by size compression valve of the port holds the spring. When the spring rebound of the piston moves up down, with the oil tapped above the piston moves travel the rebound valve, make up the reduced amount of the rod for the now inner cylinder. Additional fluid is pulled from the reservoir from the intake valve of the oil flow. The spring movement regulated with the size of the rebound valve opening and into spring. Sometimes a series of valves is used to provide both regulation and oil flow with the shock absorber to produce a smoother ride. Alright, lesson 2. Describe the type of the construction inspection procedure of the tires and wheels. Alright, construction type of the tires and tube. Additional cushion of the traction quality of the provide of the vehicle tire of the tire. The sum of the general of the truck if the tire inner tube and the flap of the inner of the tube that contains of the air of the flap protects the tube and the rim of the beaded area. The parts make up the tire with the tread of the breaker of the cushion piles and bead on each part of the tire serve the defined purpose of the travel layer of the rubber outside of the tire with the part of the contact with the rod with the wearing strip of the tread is designed to reduce skid and creep of the traction need for the driving the braking the vehicle with the tread also produce the cords of the breaker with the cut for the bruises and moisture. Rubber extend with the tread down over the sidewalls of the tire with the protect with the cords. Breaker layers of the rubber covered cord strings of the air similar piles of the cords spaced further apart with the tire hits with the bump of the brake spread out over the shop that prevents a lot of strain being placed on one section of the plies, while the breaker has also prevented the tread of the separating from the tire. Inclusion soft heating and resisting hot rubber that absorb the road shock with the bounds of the fasten of the breakers to the piles. Core piles over the strength of the resistant internal pressure to support the loads and absorb the road shock. The bead is part of the tire, the secure of the tire to the rim. It consists of the hard rubber with the bolt tube around the steel wire cables. Core piles are wrapped around with the bead to secure the tire or sidewalls. Some tires are built for use without inner tubes. They are also called tubeless tires and have a soft rubber liner inside of to prevent air leaks. Combat tires have same basic construction of the standard tires. However, the combat tires are built up to operate without air pressure, limited distance within an emergency. If they should operate with the air pressure only with the combat with a tactical situation required. The combat tire is much heavier construction than the standard tire. It also has more rigid, stiffer sidewalls, heavily cushioned plies are spaced in wide apart on the inside with a heavy suction with the rubber, the bedlock with the bead swing with the beads holds the tire in place to operate without air pressure. The tires are marked within the word combat with the serial number to side tire. Marking on the side walls of the tires given them with the manufacturer information with the important use of the pierce figure with the tires approximately within the inches for the properly mounted. Measure is taken with a specified amount of the air pressure for the tire not supporting the vehicle weight. The second number of the inside of the diameter of the bead in inches. Third part is the number of the piles supplies of the cord fabricated. The number is shown with the APR with the 8-ply rating. That means that the tire is strong and straight and standard 8-ply tire. However, the tire actually contains less number of plies. One of the smaller tires with a small round mark with a 1/4 of an inch across the side near light bead. The balance mark with the tire with the symbol of the wheel over the mark with the line with the valve of the tube. Both standard combat tires have series number that each tire is assigned with a different series number. The identification series number that is always identified with the figures inside wall of the tire. Raised figures are made with the tire mold and are not in certain number and are not the serial number. Inner tube donut type shaped rubber container fitting inside tire holds the air support of the vehicle. The tube can hold only a few pounds of air pressure when not in the tire. However, the tube will hold very high pressure when closed in the tire. Because the tubes are made of soft rubber, they are easily shammed with a pinch and punctured, otherwise damaged. Most tubes are made of synthetic bottle rubber, which holds air better than natural rubber. Standard tubes are made with one layer of the rubber used with the standard type of the tubes. The combat tires are constructed the same with the standard tubes, except that they are smaller than the standard tube with the same size market than the makeup of the combat tires are smaller inside the tube with a heavier construction. Combat tubes are stamped combat and should be used in combat tires only. Some tubes are built with a seal pump bullet puncture and automatically the tires are made over the thick and softer rubber of the built-in resistant tubes amplified with a exact extra weight thickness generally have the general green painted valve stems. Air pressure forces an inner tube through the valve stem instead of the inside of the insulation valve core. The valve core fits airtight against the tapered seat within inside the stem that permits the air under pressure to enter the prevent it from the escaping. Valve stem is threaded on the outside of the outer end of the permanent insulation of the valve cap. The valve cap keeps the valve core clean and serves as a final seal. Construction wheel and rims. The tires are assembly with the wheel and rim, and some of the wheels must have enough strength with the covers to carry the weight of the vehicle driving the braking forces by the chain side thrust. Passenger cars driving them at a high speed, which means that they must have these set close to the ground. Therefore, the perfectly balanced wheel is a small diameter. Even slightly unbalanced wheel of the tire assembly will cover the steering problems rapid the tire wear with a high speed. Small balanced weights can be attached to the wheel to offset the unbalanced condition. Passenger cars and passenger cars will usually steel disc type, but the disc may be solid, but maybe they have holes to reduce weight, but to provide ventilation for the cooling. This is well the riveted, bolted rim bolted to the brake drum. Assembly. Some passenger carriers use wire wheels and light the easy on the tires consist of the brush seal hump and then rim connected with the spoke for the weld on each side and both types of the wheels of the wheel addition to bring point of the good contact under the large wheel bearing. Purpose of the wheel rim complete with the insecure of the tube and hold the tire beads in place and connect the tires to the wheel. Several different types of rims are used for correct mounting, dismounting, and tire fit. You should be familiar with the difference in the rim types. Drop center rim is made with one piece of the permanently fastened wheel disc. Is an important feature of the deep well. The some of the wheels with the one side of the rim and the center of the tire must be removed and replaced on the side of the drop center. Rims are generally used with smaller vehicles such as passenger cars and 1/4 ton 4x4 trucks. Some passenger light trucks are equipped with the safety type drop center rims. Safety rims have slightly humped with the inside edge of the bed. Bead ledges. These hold the tire beads in place where the tire goes flat. Your semi-drop center rim shell as well in the rim and tapered bead sits in the feet of the shapes beaded on the tire's demountable rim flange side ring flange fits into the groove of the gutter of the outer edge of the rim and that holds the tire in place. You must remove the side ring to replace the tire. All right, the flat base rim, flat seat with the bead with the tires moves also. The flat bead, the rim is flat with no well. The type of the rim is demountable side ring with a permit of the mounting of dismounting of the demounting the tire. Flaps are required to use on the flat base rim to protect the part of the tube not protected by the tire. Flat base rims are no longer used in the vehicles. Advanced rim are similar to flat base except for the slightly tapered on each bead set. Taper provides a squeeze fit with the tire bead to prevent slippage between the rim and the tire. The different manufacturer made of the side rings and grooves of the gutters in the different shape to prevent interchangeable military vehicles use the advanced rim. Also, side rings and gutters are shaped in the same which permits the interchangeable rim known as the military standard rim. To operate a vehicle with a combat without air pressure in the tires, it's necessary to have some of the device locks in the tire bead in place. Tire beads must be placed in place on the rim. They enter either bead locks or bead clips. Bead clips are metal clips that are fitting on the tire bead with the end and the rim. Fixture 5 or 6 clips are equally spaced on each of the bead over the tire. With the beads clips are used, the flap is generally required to protect the tube. The bead lock is a metal device that fits between the bead of the tires. Bead lock is slightly wider than the space between the tire beads and the tire mounted on the rim. Therefore, the rim side flanges installed. The tightened pressure is applied into the tire beads. This locks the beads in place so that they will not slip on the rim and will not hold the tire in position. The continuous channel type of the bead lock, solid band steel with its insert of the position between the tire beads. Flaps are not required. The channel type of the bead lock, the hinge bead lock will compress and can be inserted with the position between the tire and the beads more easily. Flaps are not necessary for the hinge bead lock. The segmental spacer lock, bed lock, the bead lock of the blocks of the metal with the fastening to give it the flexible steel band. Flexible band allows the bead lock to collapse and remove the install with the segment. Bead lock requires flap to protect the tube. Alright, identification of tires. Unit vehicles will be in the shop with a schedule they maintenance during these maintenance period. The mechanics should be inspecting the vehicle tire and serviceability during the sometimes vehicle operator will call upon much unit repairs and assistance inspection. Just as the type of the size of the size of tires vary with the civilian vehicle, the tires of the military vehicle, the commercial type of the vehicle, same type of the tires of the civilian vehicles. These tires are regularly treaded with a great give us maximum mileage and quite operational. The regular tread of these sedan trucks and buses hard surface the roads on military modes of the administrative motor pools install commercial type snow tires on commercial vehicles during the winter months, and the type of the hour tire is special tread on the use of the drive and the wheels to provide greater traction in snow and mud. Since tactical vehicles may require to operate the off-the-road at any time, and all wheels are able to drive with the non-directional mud or snow, tires are mounted on the vehicle all year round. Radial tires are constructed causing casing piles perpendicular to the tread direction, several layers of the tread reinforcing steel and fabric just under the tread area. The construction permits flexible in the tire, minimum tread distortion, better traction, softer ride. Your bias ply tires are constructed with rayon, nylon, polyester, causing piles in a cross-section pattern wrapped around steel bed wires. These bead wires prevent the tire from opening up and separating from the rim with a high speed. The causing applies with giving the tire in shape. The construction used today in standard commercial tires. Alright, solid. Solid tires are generally not used in a transportation vehicle because of the harsh, rigid character. They usually do not roll, and freely. Pneumatic tires require more power to drive them. Road construction equipment and material handling equipment are often equipped with tires with a special purpose thread. Tractors must have the rib type of the tread with the front tires and traction tread on the rear with the traction tread on the direction type of the means of the lugs of the tread or on tire of the angle of the motor collect with the grooves that will be forced out off to the side of the wheel drive of the direction tire operates correctly with the tire must be mounted so that the point of the V-shaped tread drive in the road surface of the tire is not mounted in this way. The self-cleaning action is lost. Tire you either move the equipment that is often large enough with the diameter of 6 feet with more with a different type of the tread designed with a regular rock, mud, and snow operation may be found on the earth movers. To ensure the correct size of the vehicle tire of the vehicle. Mechanics should compare with the size of the marking side of the tire which listed in the technical manual. Tire size molded in the sidewall. Each of the tire manufacturer first number the size of the width of the tires in inches of the properly inflated upon wheel and without load. Second number inside the diameter of the bead of the tire. For example, 8.2520 mark means approximately 8.25 inches wide will inflate with the mount up on a wheel of a 20-inch diameter rim. Other remark on the side of the tire are interesting. Our area of interest mechanics are a number of plies, balance of the type, balancing point, and type markings. The ply numbers indicate the number of the layers of rayon, nylon, cord plies in the use in the construction of the tire. The greater the number of plies, the greater strength of the tire. Sedan will normally have the tire of 2 to 4 ply, but the heavy truck may have the tire of the 8 or more plies. Additional plies make tire stronger, but they also make it more rigid. Tires are the same size of the nuts, and they will not necessarily have the same type of the number of plies. Alright, a small red dot on the sidewall of the tire near the bead to indicate the balance point of the valve of the tire should be placed. Balance mark installed on the wheel to obtain the best wheel balance. Inspection of tires. And even the tire vehicle with the concept of the danger of being damaged if the tires may run over sharp objects, strike large obstructions such as curve of the rock. The tires are being inspected during the type of the service. Mechanics should be alert with all the type of the cause function, improve and inspect with the cause and remove the tire from the repair. Cut extend thoroughly through any of the fabric and the piles while the small cuts into the tread but do not reach the fabric of the tire need to be removed from the repaired. A bunch unusual lump any part of the tire indicate the internal damage of the ply of the tire should be removed. For repair or the placement the driver will normally remove sharp the objects that have entered the rubber of the tire. On trucks equipped with the dual tires for the rear of the visual check that should be made to ensure that no large rocks are lodged between the tires. In addition to the damage of the tire, the rocks can be thrown with a great distance fast-turning wheels. Drivers are sometimes guilty of driving a truck equipped with dual wheels and with one of the tires is flat. The two tires mounted together, good tire support a flat tire during operation. However, the good tire is overloaded and is likely to blow out of the flat tire that can slip on the rim and destroy the tube and cause further damage to the tire. Mechanic can check the dual tires, kicking the tires and striking both tires with some object will not bruise the tire. The flat tire with the one dual wheels will not bounce from the blow. If this method is not used, the tire has low pressure and but will show if one will completely flat. Excessive heat will cause damage tire. The tire flexible too much heat and low pressure. When tire flexes too much due to low pressure too much heat is generated and the rubber may separate from the fabric. On one of the decision tire inspection, remove the tire ring cap. Do not permit the tire remaining on the vehicle too long. All the rubber will be worn from the tire and the fabric will be exposed. When the worn to the fabric, it is not practical to repair the tire and apply the new tread. If the tire is removed too soon, the rubber will be wasted since all the possible has not been obtained from the tire. On the non-directional mode, snow tire for the tactical, the tire should be removed from recapping the center of the tread is worn smooth. As this time, the rigid form of the groove of the tread is worn from the tire center. On commercial tires, the tread gauge is issued an organizational tool set between that may be used to check the depth. Normally, the tread should not be less than 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes some cut with a rapid tread with the rest line with a wheel with excessive pressure, excessive speed, improper loading, grabbing, braking, improper vehicle operation. Tire will normally wheel where with a smooth surface of force and slag drag road surface becomes rough and scuffed. The operating on the vehicle with front wheel drive with the more required also improve the tire wear. During the winter, the tire chains improper installation. Use the chain for the cause the can chew pieces of it out of the tire and solve the wheel. The sharp edge of the tire chain should face away from the tire. Alright, if the tire has drawn on too long with it while not wearing evenly, it may be damaged beyond repair. Once the wear has extended into the fabric of the plies, it's unlikely the tire can be repaired. Uneven will can be caused by improper air pressure, incorrect steering adjustment, faulty brakes, bad shock absorber, loose wheel bearings, poor driven operator. Front wheel tires of the vehicle have too much toe in, will wear outer edge of the fast rate. With the front wheel tires have toe out, the vehicles will straight out like straight ahead. Tires will wear rapidly out on the inner edges. Improper toe in and toe out forces of the tire side and drag sideways of the roll over the road surface. The sharp feather edge left over the edge of the tire thread because of the sliding motion. Too much replay in the steering linkage, loose wheel mountings, loose wheel bearings. It can also uneven wear of the front tires back. Brake shoes and grab any of the wheels of the vehicle which will cause the tire to slide wire unevenly. Alright, any hard-driven practice by the operator, such as moving the turns too fast, stopping, starting too quick, will cause the uneven wear of the tires. Also, the reasonable with the vehicle operator to ensure the tires have correct tire pressure. If driver fails to job in this job, the tire wear uneven, the failure to fail too early. When the tire is operated with too little air pressure, center of the tire will buckle the inward and outer edge of the will carry the load that the cause of the outer edge will wear very fast. The tire with enough air pressure, flexible more, should be generally with too much heat. With the operated with too much tire pressure, vehicle will ride on the crown and center of the overexpanded tire and thus wear the center of the tread too fast. Driver and the mechanic should make every effort to keep all the tires of the vehicle wearing in even rate. One of the check the mechanics will make to measure for the circumference difference around the outside of the tire. This is done with a tape measure. Organizational maintenance common tool set number 2, lowest power. The allowance tolerance for the matching dual tires is determined outside different diameter. The difference in the size of the tire can cause increased wear of the tire drivetrain. The tires different sizes either side of the front of the vehicle can make the steering braking difficult. On the driving axles on equal side of the tires or the opposite side of the vehicle will force differential work more necessary. Two unequal sides of the mounted side of the rear dual wheels, the tires with most tread with large diameters will be forced to carry more load, while one tire carrying a load of two working tire is much more likely to fail. On vehicles that have more than one driving axle, each axle will be driven exactly the same speed. If the tires of the differential axle have different diameters, some of the tires will be forced to slip to keep the wheel speed matched, but because the large tires cover the more ground during each revolution. Often the vehicle driver will carry less of the valve caps because they are not absolutely necessary to keep the vehicle running. A mechanical should check to see if the caps are present each time the tires are inspected because they prevent failure of the tires during leaking valves. When caps are not present, mud, dirt, and other foreign matters can enter the tire valve openings and prevent proper closing. Alright, of the valve, allow the dirt moisture to be forced with the tire tube inflated with the air. Most valve caps contain steel gasket provided with a safeguard against leaky valve. To function properly, prevent small air leak, the valve cap must be snug and when installed. As the tire and the tube is assembled, the mechanic must take care of the tire valve properly installed. When inspecting the vehicle with the dual rear wheel, then note the position of the valves. To be correct with the two valves, it must be 180 degrees apart, with one valve directly opposite of the other. Aid in location of the valves stand under all conditions. The valves of the inner wheel to face outside of the vehicle. The valves are not installed with the way, but the inner tire of the rear dual wheels will be very difficult to check the air pressure of the inflate with the tires. Alright, the lug nuts were made to retain wheels may look, retaining the wheels may work loose, during the operation of the vehicle. Inspection of the mechanic shall check all the lug nuts, tighten them into it with a wrench. When loose lug nuts are found, the nuts should be tightened to the specification of the technical manual. Your front wheel bearings, which can cause tire wear, can be lubricated by jacking up the wheel, rocking the wheel back and forth. The free play can be felt in the wheel. The check may also reveal the free play and the kingpin steering knuckles control arms. Mechanics should first determine exactly where the free play is located. If the loose bearings are found, they should be adjusted in accordance with the vehicle technical manual. Other looseness found for the maintenance allocation chart to determine the responsible for the repair. Cracks in the outside of the rubber of the tire should be carefully inspected. Cracks should be spread out. The center of the tire may be extended all the way around the side of the wall of the tire. Cracks are caused by the cord piles below the rubber being weakened, spreading apart. The forces of the rubber crack open. Feel of the fabric of the tire usually do lead to the age of the tire out. The cracks open, the rubber water will enter. The complete failure of the fabric is sped up. Once of the fabric of the tire becomes weak, there's danger of the blowout any time when the load is applied. When dry rot is suspected, the tire should be replaced. In all cases, there is doubt. Serviceability of the tire. The mechanic should seek help for the maintenance supervisor. Alright, if the tire is carefully inspected prior to the removal of the wheel, but only those areas that could not be seen while mounted need to be inspected. If no inspection has been made, make all the unchecks listed with the mounted tire. In addition, check the inside surface beads, check with the beads, beads of the damage often occur during installation. Remove the tire from the wheel and the practical import. Check outside of the bead with a tubeless tire, since their air acts as a seam to retain the air. Check the inner surface of the tire to cuts and punctures and bulges. If the cord plies between being pulled loose and normally smooth, the inner surface will indicate the tire has been operated while flat. Inspection of the wheels. Inspection of wheels of the crack of the dents, oversized mounting hole. The vehicle is operated with the wheel mounting nuts loose. The wheel must move against the studs and enlarge the mounting holes. In time, holes will become so large that it will be impossible to tighten the wheel properly. Cracks may develop in any part of the wheel around the mounting holes. Usually, with the first place, they appear large dents. Usually, result of the accident, such as wheel striking a long curb or another vehicle. A warped wheel is difficult to detect when off the vehicle. It is easier to detect a warped wheel when the vehicle is moving because of noticeable weaving in and out. If the vehicle is in the shop, mechanic may raise the wheel off the floor and rotate it assembly by looking at the tire from the front as it spins. Pairing it with a stationary object, the warped wheel can be detected. If the damage is enough to make the wheel unserviceable and unsafe, it should be replaced. Then it goes into your practice exercises, a blank page, and the answers, and that completes your subcourse OD1006 edition 6, U.S. Army Ordnance Center, wheel vehicle drivelines, axles, suspension systems, Army Institute of Professional Development.